All righty, boys and girls, welcome back to another episode of the Red, White, Claret, and Blue Show with your host, Alex, and I call him Chris, Cherry Pie Condit, your American villain voices. And as always, we are here to serve you up the lukewarmest of lukewarm opinions because no one wants to take a bite of steaming hot pie and feel that sugar cake to the top of your mouth, burn the hell out of you. So that's why we always like to stay lukewarm. Everybody, please go follow the socials linked in the show notes. Listen to us on Apple, Amazon Music, and YouTube. Basically all the places in which you are not listening to us now. I guess we never say Spotify because I think we just assume people are listening to us on Spotify. Chris, you just landed. How are you, my sweet cherry pie?
Well, I'm doing well. Other than I just muted my speakers thinking that I muted my mic there when you started the show. So that's why I didn't hit the people with my normal video intro there. I could not figure out why it was not making any noise when you were talking because I was looking at something, trying to get something prepped for the show here. And I was like, oh, did Alex not start yet? Oh, no, you had started. So I picked you up like sometime when you began your intro. I just landed a few hours ago, gang. So I'm a little tired. But we're here and we're gonna do our best. And I've got some white hot takes to cool off Alex's lukewarmness here today.
Much like Villa, I guess we are limping over the finish line of this season.
Yeah, 100%.
All right. Well, with that, why don't we just roll right on into this sweet cherry preview against Bournemouth Saturday. This is the late game, so early Saturday afternoon, 12:30 Eastern time, because we are U.S. based. I don't know why I'm dragging this out. So let's just dive right into it. The last time out, we had a 1-1 draw back in October. We all remember this one as a game that Villa actually dominated but couldn't capitalize on. This was another one where we wanted a more complete performance, didn't get it. And ultimately, I have it as lost. I know it was a 1-1 draw, but it felt like a loss to give up that last-minute goal to Evan Nielsen. Not the brightest moment this year, was it, Chris?
No, we seem to be saying that a lot, though. I think that was another one of the moments this year that we're going to look back and see drop points in a position where I think it could end up costing Villa pretty dearly at the end, because that probably should have been 3 points in that game. And I think Villa really dominated possession that entire game and
possession, shots on target.
I seem to remember having a better run of the play, but it's just been part of the fabric of this season, I think, to some extent, where Villa haven't played their best for 90-minute stretches very often, and that was certainly the case that day. They played very well, but they gave it up at the end. And I think there's some things that Bournemouth do that kind of worry me a little bit, and we'll talk more about it. But I think some of that could come into play here over the weekend as well. So it's this game, even though Bournemouth, they came off the huge win against Arsenal, but otherwise they've not been playing extremely well. But I'm still concerned, and I don't think it's going to be 3 easy points by any stretch.
Well, no, because we talk about St. James Place, for example, as a place that Villa often struggle to get points, only for the fact that they haven't been in the Premier League for as long as Newcastle have in the modern era. Bournemouth might be a similar such place. Villa haven't won there since the 1-0 Rudy Gestede header that you referenced a couple of pods ago. That was all the way back in 2015, believe it or not. Now, there's been several draws. We haven't necessarily lost all the time, but it has not been a ground where Villa have found a lot of joy, which is surprising, considering that Bournemouth have not necessarily been in the upper reaches of the table. Everybody talks about Newcastle fans, and nothing against the Bournemouth fans, but I wouldn't say that they're known as being one of the more vociferous or intimidating places to go. And yet Villa can't seem to get a result there. Now, Unai Emery has apparently never lost to Andoni Iraola, but at least with Villa, it's been a lot of draws, not necessarily a lot of wins either.
Yep. It wouldn't surprise me to see a draw in this game on Saturday, but I think that there are a couple of things working in either team's favor. If you look at it, I mean, Villa got some pretty devastating injury news today with Youri Tielemans. But on the other side, I think a win against a team like Arsenal for a team like Bournemouth can go one of two ways. It either can galvanize the side, or you can have a hangover from it, and you'll see the team maybe not come out quite as much as you would expect, even though it's still a big game, still playing Aston Villa, who are hunting Champions League and all that sort of stuff. But I'm not sure really what to make of this game, especially given the news we received today about Tielemans. It kind of shakes everything up.
Yeah, so let's talk about a little bit of what Bournemouth's done lately. We can talk about them as a team. I know you have some stuff that you want to talk about things that they do well, but
Yep.
Looking at them, they've been a streaky team all year long, and I mean that in the most literal of senses. So going back to late last year, they only had one loss in 14 matches in a row, and that's when you saw them shoot up the table, I think making it all the way as high as sixth at one point.
Mm-hmm.
They followed that up by a streak of no wins in 8. And now their current run, they're technically unbeaten in 5, but they only have 2 wins in that stretch. Now, granted, one was against Arsenal, who might have been looking ahead a good bit to the PSG match in the middle of this week.
Mm-hmm.
And, more recently, they have defended well, but they have struggled to create opportunities. So they haven't crossed one expected goal in their last 3 matches. And that was Crystal Palace, Man United, and Arsenal. That is a spread up and down the table to say that they're not creating against anybody.
Mm-hmm.
But, they're not giving up any either. Like I said, they haven't lost. So it's interesting. And that's why I think that to your point, it might become this clash of styles, because it's not like they're necessarily playing well enough where you would say, oh yeah, they're going to run away with it. And the flip side, I don't think that you'd say that Villa are playing well enough that they're just going to go out and run away with it either.
Right. I agree. I was kind of surprised when you gave the statistic about how little they've created in their last few games, because they tend to shoot so much. Like, that's one of the things that concerns me about them as a side. I did the math. On average, they're shooting 15 times a game, which is a pretty good clip. Yeah. I mean, that's Premier League only when I ran those numbers. But so I just looked back at like the Arsenal game, and like they only had 9 shots and they had the 2 goals. So it wasn't like they created the type of or that they took near as many shots. I mean, that's almost 60% their normal shot amount that they took. So I think it would behoove Villa if they can bottle up Bournemouth like that, because I think when you have, even though Emi Martinez has given up a ton of goals on first shot opportunities, the more shots he takes, the more likely one's going to get past him, as we've seen this season. And if we can limit their shot creation, I think that's going to be Aston Villa's best chance at keeping them out of the net.
Yeah, and the problem is they create from so many different players too.
Mm-hmm.
That is what worries me about Bournemouth, is that it's not is oversimplifying Man City, but like if you take Haaland out the game, there's not that secondary goal scorer behind him, or maybe better said, Harry Kane back in the day, if Son was out, there's always, I guess you could say, Ipswich with Delap this year. You stop Delap, Ipswich isn't scoring. Bournemouth have many guys either at or pushing double figures. You just look at Evan Nielsen, 10 goals, 1 assist. Justin Kluivert, 12 goals, 6 assists. Semenyo, 9 goals, 5 assists. Now, he's going to be out injured, and thank God, because I think he's their second or third rated player on Who Scored. And I actually remember him having quite an impact earlier this season. But Dango Ouattara is 7 goals, 4 assists. So, you look at 4 guys there already, just off the top of my head, with double digits, often 15 plus goal contribution. Like that's wild.
Yep.
And to your point, that's a testament to the opportunities that they create and the way that they attack, specifically through Clivert in the middle, clearly a linchpin, to just beat you so many different ways.
Yeah, and so I mean, I think they're going to be putting pressure on our defensive wings. If you ask what I'm expecting them to do, I think they're going to try to attack down the wing and use either crosses or trying to find through balls, like square balls in toward the center, or crossing directly into the net or into the box. To try and create then opportunities in the middle of play. But so I think there's going to be a decent amount of pressure on whoever Villa puts at the left and right back, because I expect that's where the bulk of the attack is going to come from, at least to start. I think they're going to try and find a weakness on the wing and then work the ball toward the center is my expectation, but we'll see what happens on Saturday.
Yeah. All I know is that they're well drilled. I rate Iraola as a manager very highly. Yep. I think he's very intelligent. One thing that I'm looking out for, and we've called this out a little bit, set pieces. So they are weak defending set pieces. I don't have the exact number in front of me, but could be another Austin McPhee game.
Yep.
Except that Villa are without maybe their first choice set piece taker in Youri Tielemans. So, Chris, let's talk about the Villa setup and what we think we're going to do to try and get a victory down there at Bournemouth.
Yeah, I mean, the Tielemans injury, and I'm sure everybody knows by now because it broke earlier today, Tielemans may be out for the season due to a muscle injury, which, I mean, that would just be a real kick in the teeth, because he's been, for me, I think we talked about it you and I definitely talked about it in text. I don't remember if we brought it up on the pod or not, but for me, he's been the player of the season, and it's not particularly close. He's had such a good year, and he's so important to what Villa do, both in attack and defense. So to lose a guy like that, it's going to hurt. We have players to fill in, but nobody quite like that. So the setup that I'm going with is Emi Martinez, Matty Cash, Ezri Konsa, Pau Torres, Luka Dean in the back, Onana and Kamara in the middle, defensive middle. And then I think I always struggle what to do here in the front three or front four, essentially, but we know the top is Watkins. But I think it's going to be JJ, McGinn, and Morgan Rogers. And I think Unai may put McGinn in that number 10 role in this game, where we've seen him, where he's not been particularly effective. But I think that may be where we see McGinn drop and almost maybe sit a little deeper and sort of make up for that lack of Youri Tielemans in the middle of the park. So I'm interested to see how they chain all that together, but I'm not 100% sure on that lineup. It's just what I landed on after I thought about it for about 10 minutes.
It's funny. There's actually so many different things that Unai could potentially do as a result of Youri Tielemans being out, because you and I both think that Onana is going to start in that place, but that hasn't really been something that we've seen all year long. True. So could it be a random Ross Barkley start? Could it be that McGinn moves back into the Youri Tielemans role to keep that balance of someone who is a bit more attacking and then someone who's defensive? And then you look at a forward line of Ramsey, Rogers, Asensio, for example. I'm very interested to see what Unai Emery is going to do. My lineup, I have Emi in goal. I have Matt Cash at right back, Konsa center, Pau again. I don't think that Unai Emery is rotating center backs at this point in the season. We've kind of seen Pau in enough games in a row to know that when Pau's fit, Pau starts. And then I too have Luka Dean at left back. I think that position is still rotating, but it could be another Ian Maatsen game. He's played a lot more recently, and so maybe much like Pau, he's kind of taken over that spot. I think we spoke last pod about how dynamic he's been going forward. I have Kamara and McGinn in my two midfield roles. And then I have, due to both of their ability to play on the half turn and be able to kind of spring our attack. And then in front of them, I think we'll see Ramsey on the left, Asensio in the middle, and Morgan Rogers on the right-hand side.
Yeah.
I don't like that. And then Ollie Watkins up top, obviously.
Yeah.
I don't like that because I don't think that Asensio has been particularly effective. Even if we were to move McGinn back and not start Onana, I would still probably rather start Leon Bailey, for example. Yeah. But I think that is what Unai is going to try to do.
I like your lineup a little better than mine. I think it makes a little more sense. I'm not sure. But who knows what we're going to land on? Really, it's difficult to say. And the loss of Youri Tielemans, I think, is a pretty big loss for this club. I don't think anybody would deny that. He's been such a great player for the team for the last 2 years.
Yeah, we spoke last episode about how good he's been actually defensively in the ground duels. And I think that might be where we miss him more than anything, his ability to read the field. Because Bournemouth, from what I remember and from what I've seen, like to attack quickly. They don't necessarily possess the ball a ton.
They had 22% possession against Arsenal. 22%.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that's been a theme on the year. I should have written it down, but I think they are sub 50% on the season. They might even be closer to like 45 between.
They're 47.8% in the league. Yeah.
I saw the 7. I thought it was a 2.
Yeah.
Still 47, not a ton. And that means more often than not, they are conceding the ball to their opposition. But they've got guys with pace. I feel like we're saying this every week now. They've got guys with pace. They've got creative guys that can turn. Again, Kluivert playing through the middle, Semenyo on the right-hand side, and then Evan Nielsen up top. We're going to need someone who can intercept the ball there. And so that's why I think that the savviness of John McGinn, as opposed to maybe just the pure raw athleticism of Onana, is maybe of greater benefit to us here. Going the other way, this is going to be another one where we're going to have a lot of the ball and need to break someone down. And so that's why I think that Asensio, as much as I don't necessarily believe in him as a week in, week out starter, he does have that creativity. He's got it in his locker to potentially create an opportunity for someone. And so we got to just hope that we can take advantage of the opportunities that we get.
Nice. Yeah. No, like I said, your lineup makes a lot of sense to me. And for those of you watching on YouTube, and if you're not, you should be, you just saw Alex go to a one shot there, as they say in the biz. And that was because I hit the wrong button because I was trying to mute my mic again because my dog was snoring. So I'm really knocking out of the park here on the technology today. We're doing great. So with your lineup out there and my lineup out there, what do you feel about a score, Alex?
I think this might be the death knell in our Champions League pursuit. I think it's going to be a 1-1 draw.
1-1 draw. Well, I have it in my spreadsheet as a win. I didn't put down the score. I'm going to stick to that, even though the news of, like I've said now 3 times, the Youri Tielemans news was a big blow for me and for the team. I'm going to say 2-1 Aston Villa, and I'll say goals from Ollie Watkins and Morgan Rogers. We don't normally do that, but I'm calling it for fun.
We kind of started doing that when we started this podcast, and then
Yeah.
we fell out because I think we were just wrong so often.
I mean, you're gonna be wrong though. Like if we were right, we wouldn't be doing this because we'd be betting on those and winning them, right? I mean, come on.
Facts. No, I think the combo of Youri being out and learning how historically bad we've been at Bournemouth and seeing that at least they seem to be getting out of their latest funk and going back into their latest kind of strong run, and that's brought me down. If we did this as, our usual recap pod last week, I think I'm with you. I would have probably predicted a 2-1, 3-1 win. But the more I've looked into this, the more I'm worried, because not only for all those factors, but the psychological factor. There's been a ton made, and we're going to get to this later, so please don't jump into your rant yet. A ton made about everything happening with the Tottenham match, what's going to happen with the Manchester United match. And I worry that a lot of the fan base is overlooking this one as potentially a gimme, looking at what happens to Newcastle and Chelsea and Forest and all that other kind of stuff. And they haven't focused on Bournemouth. And I worry that all that noise takes focus from the team away from Bournemouth as well. As much as we know Unai and the players are going to say we're one game at a time, 3 left, like we're focused on Bournemouth, like it's hard to tune all that out. And so I am a bit worried that people are not taking this game as seriously as they need to.
I mean, I hope that's not the case, but I get why you're saying it. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So before we get to that Spurs match, let's infiltrate the Villarati a little bit. And I mean, I guess both of these are kind of infiltrating the Villarati. But Chris, there are increasing reports from Chicken Little, amongst others, saying that Villa is going to need to make another big sale before June 30th to meet PSR. I feel like today the Chicken Little moniker is actually pretty apropos. This is another kind of Louise-esque situation where we've got to do it by June 30th to meet PSR. Obviously, teams kind of know that we're over a barrel, and there have been a number of different names and combinations of names that have been thrown out there. So yeah. I'm curious who you think it's going to be, or if you were in charge, who would you be looking to move on?
I mean, I don't know what the club is going to do, and I assume that the rumors are accurate because there's a lot of smoke there now with multiple reportings. We'll see what happens when the books come out. But if it were me, if I were in charge, and I think people may not like the names, but it would be Emi Martinez and Ollie Watkins. Those would be the two that I'd probably try to move on because for 2 reasons. I don't even know that they're necessarily at peak value anymore. They may be slightly past their peak value, but you'll still be able to get a decent fee for either or both. And Villa have plans for replacing Martinez anyway. I mean, they're obviously heavily scouting goalkeepers right now. And in terms of Watkins, I don't know what we're going to do there, but Daniel Malen could fill in if they manage to work out Marcus Rashford. I don't think that's going to happen, but that's a guy that can play up top. But in terms of players that you can take the hit on losing, I think those are the two that will actually command a fee, because you don't want to lose Youri Tielemans. You don't want to lose Boubacar Kamara. You don't want to lose Morgan Rogers. Those are 3 guys that you really want to keep here as long as you can. And I don't want to see like those 3 are going to all be mentioned, I'm sure, as well, especially Morgan Rogers. But I don't want to see those guys go anywhere. I'd prefer to keep them here and build around them.
Yeah, so, we call him Chicken Little, but I think he actually had a fairly well-reasoned piece out. I want to say it was today or yesterday, where he interviewed a lot of people inside the club about what the different options were in terms of PSR. So I'll cover a little what he said and then put my own opinion on it. Emi Martinez, absolutely there's smoke around Saudi being interested. Problem with him is that there doesn't seem to be a huge market for him anywhere else. Definitely a lot of interest in Kamara, but he loves the Premier League, loves Unai Emery. There's a big offer in front of him. The one thing for him is that he believes, rightfully so probably, that he should be playing Champions League every single year. And so if we don't get Champions League, that becomes a more difficult negotiation. Everybody's interested in Morgan Rogers, but apparently we've told them it is an astronomical fee to get him. Probably, now this is my estimate, 150 million plus to prime Morgan Rogers away. Still some interest in Jacob Ramsey, specifically from Tottenham. But Unai Emery is apparently a big fan of his when fit. Fit is the question. That's why it's been again. And then Ollie Watkins, as you and I predicted, very much was a John Duran or Ollie Watkins situation in January, and ultimately the Duran fee won out. But the club and Unai Emery were perfectly fine moving on from Ollie Watkins and having John Duran be the week in, week out striker. And so you've heard Ollie Watkins's frustration in recent weeks come about, and so there's certainly some smoke bubbling around him as well. And so I think that is probably the major components that we have here. Now, on top of that, you've got Luka Dean and Tyrone Mings, two senior defenders coming into the last 12 months of their contract. Have to imagine Mings, at the very least, he just seems Villa through and through. He's going to want to figure out a way to stay. And then the other one that I haven't heard as much conversation about, were actually the two that there doesn't seem to be a lot of conversation around in the sales, is Youri Tielemans, who came on as a free, remember, and has just played 50 some odd games in a couple years after we were told that his legs were gone. And Enzo, coming back from Spain, who apparently has shown out real well for out there in La Liga, and has probably very much increased his price from where it was a year ago when we bought him. So he's gone up. Sammy Ill's probably pretty far down considering where he's needed to go after coming over from Juve. So my concern with this June 30th deadline is that not only do teams know they have us over a barrel, but there are very few players outside of probably Youri Tielemans and Boubacar Kamara who I would say you are attracting their peak value for, the way that we were able to extract peak value for Douglas Luiz. Let me clarify. We didn't get the maximum that we probably could have gotten for him, but at least we sold him at the height of his powers for, whatever the max would be given all those external factors. So I don't really know what you do. I don't think that Emi Martinez is going to Saudi Arabia, even if the club accepts.
Yeah, he doesn't seem like it, right? Yeah.
He's a competitor. He wants to be winning titles with Villa, without Villa, with Argentina, and he probably won't be the number one at Argentina much longer if he goes to Saudi Arabia. He's only 32.
Right.
You're seeing plenty of goalkeepers play until 35, 36. He probably thinks that he's got a few years left. So then you try and drum up interest from Real Madrid. Are they moving on from Courtois? No. PSG pretty set with Donnarumma. You don't want to sell him inside the Premier League, so he's not going to Chelsea or Man City to replace Ederson. Bayern Munich, maybe? I mean, there's a very limited number of clubs that you could sell him to that he would potentially agree to go to, even though I agree with you. He's probably a name that you could sell, let's say, for 45, 50 million and then buy Joan Garcia out of Spain for 20, right?
25, yeah.
Pocket 20 million and go about your day.
Yep.
Ollie Watkins, especially given the deadline, given the frustrations, is he going for more than 40 at this point?
Oh, no. Yeah.
No. So I think you're starting to look at a meeting the mark by committee, depending on what big sale means. And unfortunately, you may look at an Ali, Cash, Luka Dean, Tyrone Mate, like a 4-part sale player swap situation to try and make this thing work. Because otherwise, you're looking at Youri pure profit, JJ pure profit, and Kamara pure profit.
Morgan Rogers, not pure profit, but astronomical fee against a very small buy.
Yeah. Leon Bailey, Saudi interest apparently legit, but like, is he going there for more than 15, 20? Probably not. So like, I don't see the one piece out of Kamara, who, to your point, the club wants to build around, and maybe Youri Tielemans, who no one seems to be interested in, that could really command a fee to make this go away, which is shocking considering that we sold John Duran for 65, 70 back in January.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it shows the system, how difficult the system is to break here, because it's designed to stop teams like this and teams like Newcastle from competing long term. It's designed to keep the teams that are up at the top. It's the craziest thing. Never seen anything like it. Never.
And I will say, we're not saying that there shouldn't be protections to ensure that clubs stay sustainable. No one wants to see a bury of a team just going under and going bankrupt, right? We talk about this in America, like, what's the comp? Why does this exist? American franchises can't go under. They're owned by the league. There's so much bankroll and backstops and all that kind of stuff that if the Haslams go bankrupt, nothing's happening to the Cleveland Browns. Someone else will buy it. I mean, the franchise might move, but like, they're staying. And so in a relegation world where your revenues can go away, there needs to be something to make sure that these clubs don't spend themselves into administration. But the system that exists doesn't actually do that.
No, it doesn't. You're allowed to lose money as long as you bring in revenue to match it. That's all that needs to happen. So if you've had a team that was popular in America in the late 90s, you've got a 30-year head start on everybody else in terms of revenue generation, right? Because that the money's coming from America and Asia. That's the bulk, of this. That's where the TV money comes from. That's where the money is. So anyway, yeah, it's frustrating, and so far Villa have done a really, really good job of navigating through the system. I'll take a look at the books when they come out, and I think we're in for another very interesting summer.
I think so as well. But before we get there, we've got a couple games to play, and we've got an apology to demand. Chris, you are hotter about this than I am. So you go first, and I will try and temper you down, maybe not all the way to lukewarm, but at least to an edible heat.
That's no fun. But so you guys know where I'm going to go here now. This is the Premier League and the FA need to apologize to Aston Villa, and the Premier League in particular has really put themselves in a bad position with this moving of the Tottenham game so that bottom table Tottenham has the same amount of rest as bottom table Man United in the Europa League final. It's ridiculous, number one. And number two, the issue that the Premier League has created is, in my view, twofold. First, the optics of this are awful, and there's no way to spin that any other way. You can say whatever you want, but what it looks like is Aston Villa has 5 games in 14 days and asks to get a game moved to ease the pressure on their European schedule. The league says no. Bottom table Tottenham Hotspur have 5 games in, I think, 18 days and ask the league to move a game that means absolutely nothing to them, by the way. They can play the kids all they want because nobody's going to care. And I'm really trying not to swear here. I just want to point out that I haven't dropped any bad words yet.
I'm so proud of you.
No one's going to care if Tottenham finish 16th or 15th or whatever they are, and it doesn't matter if they finish 15th or 16th. I mean, it does. They make a little more money one way or the other, but to Tottenham, it doesn't mean anything. For Villa, it's the difference between Champions League or not, potentially. So what this looks like, whether or not this is what the Premier League intended, is really irrelevant. It looks like Tottenham and Man United are getting treatment because they're Tottenham and Man United that other teams don't get.
Hold on. Man United hasn't gotten any treatment. Their game.
Oh, that's right. Their game was moved back. Yeah. Their game was already. Yeah. Sorry. So Tottenham in this case doesn't get or gets treatment that other teams don't get because they're in the quote unquote big six. Whether or not that's true really doesn't matter because it's true to the fans. And I'm not just talking about Villa fans here. I'm talking about people all over social media and all that, which is not a good place to necessarily get. But this is an idea where perception is reality here. So what it looks like is Villa have been denied 3 times when they've asked to move their games to accommodate the European schedule. Tottenham, who again sit near the bottom of the table, asked to move a meaningless game, and it was moved. And it was moved to a day where just last year, I think August of 2024, the Premier League said there would be no games on Friday before the FA Cup final to ensure that all the focus of the weekend was on the FA Cup final. And it took them less than a year to break that promise for Tottenham Hotspur. And so I'm not suggesting that the league is anti-Villa or pro-Tottenham or pro-Big Six or whatever. I am suggesting that this sort of double standard is the reason why people think things like that. Because again, Villa were asking to move games that actually meant something because they had to survive a European schedule and keep up in the league. The league is over for Tottenham. They have nothing. They have nothing but the Europa League final left. That's all they have. They could trot out, locals from down the road if they wanted to, just slap some white jerseys on them and say, "You're Tottenham Hotspur today. Let's go." The game doesn't matter if they win or lose. Doesn't change their season at all. And Ange Postecoglou is still going to get fired, win or lose. Doesn't matter. So the idea that the Premier League would move this game to accommodate them, but not move Aston Villa's games to help Villa have the same sort of rest as their European opponents, it looks bad. And I'm going to say one last thing, and then I'll let you go. Like, you're giving Tottenham more rest, and you're doing more to accommodate them so that they can qualify for Europe than you gave to a team that was already in Europe, that was trying to compete in Europe. So like I said, the optics of this are really the problem because it doesn't look good for the Premier League, and it looks like there's a set of rules for one group of teams and there's a set of rules for another group of teams. And Aston Villa's on one side and Tottenham's on the other.
You good?
Yep.
Feel better? Got it all out?
No.
I want to demand an extra apology because actually I will be in Philadelphia for this game, or was supposed to be. And so I was going to get to go on Sunday morning to the soccer pub, shout out Fido, that I went to for 4 years of college. Will not confirm nor deny whether I may have been able to procure alcoholic beverages with an ID that did not represent me there. Made friends with everybody year over year over year. Now that it's on Friday, I'm going to be on a plane.
So yeah, didn't even get to that, right? How it screws the fans.
Yeah. So screw you, EPL, and I demand an apology. Here's where I'm not going to disagree with you because the optics are what they are, and I fully agree with you that while there probably isn't an actual bias, perception is reality here, and there is the perception of Big Six bias. So allow me to just add a couple nuances to what you're saying that I don't even necessarily think like makes it better, but this is the Premier League's out clause to why it's different. First off, we spoke about Villa wanting to move the Liverpool game earlier this year. Was not possible. I don't care what anyone says, like the rules for when you can host games and when you can move them to, there was nowhere for Villa to move the Liverpool game.
The rules also
So,
say no games on the Friday before the FA Cup final, though.
Chris, there literally weren't days. Like, would you want us to play like in 2 days on another situation? Like the day didn't exist. This isn't about like moving it to a day where you can't have games. This was moving it to another day where you would have 2 days of rest instead of 3 or 4. Like the day didn't exist. We can't magically make an 8th day of the week called Saturnunday that all of a sudden we start playing games on. Okay, so like I want to throw that out the window, at least of one of Villa's claims being rejected. Therefore, this one should be rejected. Villa didn't have a claim before. It was great PR from them to make it seem like they did, but they didn't. Okay, now with this, what the Premier League's out clause is going to be and what they're going to say the difference is that these are 2 EPL teams that we can control and therefore ensure that they have the same amount of time leading into this. If Villa were playing Arsenal in the Champions League and wanted to move a game and were denied, then you can say it's apples to apples because it's English team versus English team, and the Premier League is only accommodating one English team and not another one. Villa didn't have a situation like that. So the Premier League, we don't control the other teams. Like, sorry, you got to play. We got to do what's best for our league. In this case, they feel like that's what's best for their league because this is a guaranteed Champions League spot, whereas Villa is just taking one that already exists. So it's better for the coefficient. It's better for all that kind of stuff. Now, that being said, I think it's stupid, but because it was moved, I almost wonder if, and now that Spurs are in the title game for the Europa League final, I think they're going to play the kids anyway. And going from a Saturday to a Friday, as opposed to a Saturday to a Sunday, not that big a deal.
Sunday to Friday, though. Sunday to Friday.
No. So we play Bournemouth on Saturday.
Oh.
And
You're talking about rest.
Yes, rest beforehand. So going from Saturday to Sunday, as opposed to Saturday to Friday, I don't think really matters from a Villa rest perspective.
Yeah.
And then having the added time leading up to Man U on the final game of the season, I think is much more important. That's it from a competition perspective. So why am I still demanding an apology? Because what you alluded to with my kind of joking thing about not being able to make the pub for it, like this is an absolute slap in the face to the Villa fans for the last home game of the season that everybody makes plans around to go. I mean,
10 days out.
10 days out. There was a point where you and I, at least jokingly, discussed going out for the final home match of the season because we thought it would be impactful. And we would spend a lot of money to get on a plane, to get over there. And knowing our work schedules, we probably would have been set to leave on Friday thinking we'll leave Friday, get there Saturday, and be able to go up for the Sunday match. And that's all out the window. Is the Premier League refunding our plane tickets? Are they refunding our hotel accommodations because they want to move this to accommodate Spurs for, as you rightly point, a game that doesn't matter? No. So like, I don't want to hear any arguments about Villa from a competition perspective. There were also all the other days about the Women's Super League final, the FA Cup final, and all that kind of stuff. And I actually like that the EPL is carving out a space for women's football as well to have its time to shine. That would be an easy thing for them to just kind of brush under the rug and be like, it's whatever. But the fans cannot be treated this callously.
Yeah.
And we're not season ticket holders. We weren't match ticket holders. So like, I don't know what communication and remedies have gone out for that. But God, it better be something, or England better have some really awesome class action lawsuit legal ways that you can go after them for it, because this is heinous treatment.
Yeah. I mean, 10 days out to move the game 48 hours and say, yeah, it's not Sunday afternoon now. It's actually going to be Friday night. Move your schedule. Can't get off work. Tough. It's just, it's a crazy thing that would happen, in the only time something like that happens here in America is like due to some sort of catastrophe, like a hurricane or something like that. They never just move a game. We don't also play in season tournaments really, but it's just unthinkable, because I feel badly for the Villa fans. I don't care about the Tottenham fans because they can kick rocks for all I care. The Villa fans that planned on going to this game and cannot now because it was moved to Friday with 10 days notice. Like I feel terribly for them, because that's a real consequence of this action by the Premier League. You can talk about all the other things I said where I was railing against the league anyway, but this is a real thing where you now have people that found out 10 days before the game was supposed to be played that, oh, I have to figure out, work, or who's going to watch my kids, or whatever the case may be, because now you've moved it to an entirely different time, an entirely different day of the week.
Yeah, agreed. I have nothing else to add. I've said my piece. EPL, you're welcome on. You can come respond and give us an apology to us and all Villa fans. I know you won't. I actually know a couple of people that work for the EPL. And yeah,
just
we'll be here waiting.
You cowards. That's all I would do.
Exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to torpedo my future career by sending out angry emails to properties. Yeah, doors always open. Anybody you cowards, come on, come apologize to us. Chris, we're on to Saturday. Wishing for the best, hoping we're keeping this Champions League run alive. But until then, sir, as always, up the Villa.
Up the Villa.
Hi, Mom and Dad.